Booster? Hey, bro. Gah! Bats! Booster! Together! Wow, well, this is great. This is just awesome.
You never said you and Booster were friends.
It never came up.
A consummate professional like you, friends with a dilettante like Booster?
You're both my friends, okay? You're more of a work friend, and Booster is more of a fun friend.
What's more fun than fighting crime?
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below, and I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have, DC fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. So I'm going back to JLI, so we're looking at Justice League International. We're going to be doing two issues, 13 and 14. Now, these two issues is going to be a little different because I'm going to read most of issue 13, but kind of go and narrate issue 14 because issue 14 is mostly a fighting issue, so I can skip over a lot. It's also a different creative team for just that issue. So our story is by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. Now, Keith Giffen did the plot for every issue of JLI, and his partner in crime did the scripting. And then Keith Giffen and Al Gordon are actually going to do the art. So Keith Giffen will do the pencils, and Al Gordon will do the inks. Rest in peace, also Keith Giffen. And so this is the cover of 13, and we're going to see the Suicide Squad involved in both issues. Issue 14, I believe, is oh my God, he was a regular writer on Suicide Squad. Ostrander is the last name. I forgot his first name. But he'll do issue 13. So here we go. Collision course. Somewhere in the Soviet Union. So we have a Russian here saying, well, Mrs. Tressler, or should we call you Nemesis? How are you enjoying your stay so far? Oh, I admit the weather leaves quite a bit to be desired, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. After all, you'll be executed within, say a month, and he's putting in his cigarette here. It might even take a bit longer. After all, we have to see to it that you have a fair trial. So in the meantime, Mr. Tressler, we want you to relax and enjoy our hospitality. And so they toss him in the cell. I once stayed in an American Holiday Inn. This isn't quite as nice, but I assure you that you'll be soon thinking of it as home. You can kind of see the smirk here. Sleep well, Mr. Tressler. And he's like, go to hell. So now we're in the New York Embassy of the JLI here. And Batman's getting a report about Nemesis being arrested. And Batman isn't taking it very well here. They're friends. And Oberon comes through and says, Batman, says, what is it, Oberon? I'll take over now. You've been sitting in there monitoring for, and Batman says 6.5 hours. And Oberon, 6.5, what you said. One of the things I enjoy about JLI, Keith Giffen in particular, is him and Peter David are just, they like to put gags and comedy into their comic books. And so Batman continue, he was a good man. I've worked with him. And he's like, pardon. And Batman says, I wasn't talking to you. And Oberon says, oh, who were you talking to? And Batman says, myself. And Oberon's like, yourself? And Batman goes, I sometimes find it helps the thinking process, brings out subtleties out of the shadows, makes the obvious more so. And he's like, yeah, right. And he says, I'll be going now. You just call if you need anything. Coffee, tea, a good psychiatrist. And Batman says, what was that? I said, my feet are killing me. Gotta see a good podiatrist. And so he's walking out here, and Oberon goes to Black Canary and says, if I wouldn't go there if I were you, Canary. He's weirding out again. And she says, I've worked with him for years, Oberon. I'm used to it. And so I believe this is is this the Watergate? Anyway, absolutely not, says Amanda Waller. Don't you jackasses get the picture? Well, maybe you don't, but Amanda Waller does. The Russians made the information public to bait the trap. They want to get the others that went in there with Nemesis. They want you. And if you think I'm sending the Suicide Squad on another fool's mission, mister, you're out of your stupid, stinking mind, says Waller. And so we're at the prison here. And so we repeat that. And she's like, you got it, Colonel Flag? No, would you mind saying again? And she's like, I don't like that tone you're taking, mister. Sorry, I'll take another one. And she's like, watch yourself, Colonel. You may be in charge of the Suicide Squad, but I'm in charge of you. And he kind of mumbles here, you know, lady, you need a good psychiatrist. She's like, what did you say? He says, feet hurt. Got to find a good podiatrist. So a running gag here. And so this lady, I don't know her name, but she says, that sounded like a lovely conversation. And Flag says, one of the more memorable Waller and I have had. And she says, she didn't go for it. And Flag says, how'd you guess? And she says, I'm very intuitive, so what now? And so Flag basically says, we ignore her and go anyway. And the girl says, you know, it is Waller's right. It probably is a trap. And the Flag says, of course it's a trap, but we've got to do it. Hey, don't yell at me. I'm on your side, remember? So Nightshade is her name. He says, sorry, Nightshade, I'm just a little tense. She goes, so I've noticed. Okay, we've tried going through channels. Are you ready for the alternative? No, but let's go, says Nightshade. I wonder if there's some way we can do this without Waller finding out. And she says, we could kill her before we leave. Then she'll never know. And he's like, And as they're walking, she goes, that was a joke, Flag. And he's like, oh. So he actually did contemplate. So now we are back at JLI headquarters. And we got Batman and Rocket Red. And so Rocket goes, you seem especially agitated, Batman. And says, I don't need a personality profile from you, Rocket Red. I need answers. And he's like, call me Dimitri. Answers now. Just because I'm a Soviet citizen. And Batman's like, you're a Soviet superhero with deep government connections. And Rocket Red says, does not mean I know everything that goes on in my country. But I will say this. If your nemesis is in prison, there must be a reason. And what was he doing in my country in the first place? I doubt he was sightseeing. And Batman says, I know this man. He's no villain. And Rocket Red says, you seem to know many things, Batman. Perhaps more than more that you're admitting to. And Batman says, look, Red. And Rocket Red is like, Dimitri, please. And Batman says, and I love how Keith Giffen draws Batman. I don't have to explain myself to you. And Rocket Red says, you're under no obligation, Batman, but hokey smoke. We are teammates. You should trust me. And Batman says, did you say hokey smoke? He goes, you're now familiar with the expression? I learned it from my favorite American television show, the one with the talking moose and the flying squirrel. He means, oh my gosh, Bullwinkle? And then Batman goes, wait, where are you going? And he says, to find some aspirin. I got a terrible headache. And so back at Belle Reve, Flag is getting the Suicide Squad going. And he says, sorry I had to summon you so quickly, but this is an emergency mission. And Deadshot's like, yeah, aren't they all? But at Deadshot, hey, I'm not complaining, Flag. I'm into it. And so this lady says, care to enlighten us, Colonel? Not just yet, Nightshade. I'll brief you en route. And so this is Vixen, a former member of the Justice League. And she's like, this isn't the way we did it in the old Justice League. And Captain Boomerang is, you're not in the league now, darling. So I'm beginning to see. And Deadshot says, let's can the chatter and move. I'm itching for some action. And Flag says, you want action, Deadshot? Well, I can assure you, that's just what you'll get. Sorry about that. All right. And so the Suicide Squad is sneaking in on a truck here to go into this airplane here. And Flag is talking to this guy here, and he's like, "Hey, I haven't told anything about this, and with no authorization." And Flag says, "Phil, you know me, and you know the kinds of missions my squad's involved in. Secrecy is what we're about." And he's like, "Yes, but still, trust me, Phil. If there's any problem, I'll take full responsibility." And he's like, "Whatever you say, Colonel." But then he goes, "I'm calling Economus just in case." Why wouldn't you call him before? But he calls him after. And so the Suicide Squad goes away. And so he calls, and this guy's like, "He did what? Phil, tell me you're joking. I don't care what he said. He had no authority." No, there's a better way to handle it. I'll sick Waller on him. So then he calls Waller. And she's like, "He did what? Economus, you better tell me you're joking. I don't care what he said. He had no authority." No, there's a better way to handle it. Get me the president. So everybody's kicking it upstairs. And so this being 1988, this would have been Reagan's last year in the White House. And this is Reagan. And you'll see later that they do show him. And he says, "He did what? They're going where?" And Waller says, "The Soviet Union, Mr. President, to break Nemesis out." And Reagan says, "I commend Flag's patriotism, but at this point in my administration, I can't have another albatross around my neck. Maybe it's time to review this whole Suicide Squad thing." And he's referring to the Iran-Contra. And Waller says, "Now, let's not be hasty, Mr. President. You know, Mrs. Waller, life isn't like the movies." And she says, "So I've noticed. Why, wouldn't it be a simpler world if Captain Flag," and she's like, "Colonel Flag, could just go march in there on a white horse like Errol Flynn and get that neurosis fella?" And she's like, "That's Nemesis, sir. Out and come home, marching home in triumph." And so he says, "May I make a suggestion?" And Waller says, "By all means. Put the JLI on this." Oh, sorry. This is Reagan here, not Waller. So she says, "May I make a suggestion?" And so she says, "Put the JLI on it. Isn't a situation like this why the UN sanctioned the group in the first place? The JLI, is that a Jewish organization?" "No, sir. The Justice League International." And Reagan goes, "I knew that, Mrs. Waller. I was just having a little fun. You know, being president isn't what it used to be. I need all the laughs I can get. Yes, Mrs. Waller, I like the idea. Send in the JDL." And she says, "That's JLI, sir. Just pulling your leg, my dear. Yes, sir." And so, gags is what these guys are known for. So, and so right now, Batman is gathering the League to do just that here. And this is before, so this is Green Lantern Guy Gardner. And this is after Batman had punched him before he goes back to his lovable self. So he's still kind of like wimpish, for lack of a better word. So we got Booster Gold, Black Canary. We have Mr. Miracle, Martian Manhunter. We got Batman here. We got Blue Beetle, Green Lantern, Rocket, Red, and then Oberon here. So Batman wants everybody, and he's like, "Trust me," and everyone's like, "What? We can't do this." And so they're all going like, "We can't go and invade Russia again," because they already had their problems. And then Oberon says, "Yeah, the president's sending us in." So and they're like, "Russia again? I don't get it." Well, according to Oberon, there's a team of American supervillains attacking a Soviet prison. So this is where they're gonna meet the and we're gonna have the JLI take on the Suicide Squad. So I'll just kind of start moving it along here because we still have a second issue. And so here's the Russian delegate here. And so he says, "I will be handling this." He says, "Excellent. Just make sure your people know we're coming." Of course. Is Guy Gardner with you? He is, but I will personally vouch for his behavior. And who will vouch for yours? He kind of says. He's like, pardon? He's like, God, nothing. And so, he's like, let's see, he calls the chairman, and you can see again with the superheroes. And so now we're at the hospital where we have Maxwell Lord. This Maxwell Lord, I don't think that there was an inclination to turn him heel the way it ended up being. But this is when he was not. Now, it's been retconned that he was always planning this, but this is the 80s, and we're looking at 20 years before he actually does turn. So, he's like, Amanda, do come in. You're looking lovely. And Waller says, spare me. You're aware of the situation. He goes, of course, I've been fully briefed. He's kind of like in charge of the JLI. Don't worry about a thing, Amanda. My Justice League will. And Waller says, I don't care what your Justice League does as long as I get my team back intact. Just get him out of Russia, and above all else, maintain top-level secrecy. Secrecy, as in no publicity? Amanda, it's my job to see the smiling faces of the world's greatest superheroes are plastered on the front pages across the globe. Why secrecy isn't even in Maxwell Lord's vocabulary. Max, from what I've heard, you almost died. Yup. Saw the Grim Reaper staring at me, square in the face, bullet, blood, awful mess. Do this right, Max, or I'll finish the job. I always said you had a wonderful sense of humor. Max, let's not make this difficult. Difficult? Me, perish the thought. Now, if you want it your way, what's in it for? And so he was going to say me. And so now we've got the other rockets in here in Siberia. They're getting ready for the Suicide Squad to get there. And Moscow here. This guy's meeting with this other guy. And he ends up taking his car. And so now we get Batman meeting that guy that they had called. He's like, I want to see Nemesis, and I want to see him now. Batman's very intimidating. And Blue Beetle's like, you know what I love about Bats? He's got such a winning way with people. And Martian Manhunter's like, back off, Batman. And Batman was gonna protest, but he's like, back off. You're your green friend, but back. And Batman's like, shut up. And he's like, yes, of course. And look at Guy Gardner. You know, I never noticed what a lovely flag you Soviets have. Who's your designer? And so Martian Manhunter goes, I apologize for Batman's rudeness, Warden Trigorin. He's a bit immature. He's like, what? And loud, too. But perhaps if you would allow him to see Nemesis for just a... And then the guy goes, I'm sorry, truly, but I have explicit orders no one wants to see the prisoner. Besides, I was under the impression the Justice League was here to protect this prison. And from what I hear, we are in dire need of protection. So they mean the Suicide Squad here. So Rocket Red makes it so that Batman can see Nemesis here. He called in a favor. And so they're going to go, and Batman says, Dimitri, I don't know what to say. He says, then say nothing, my friend. But he says, just remember, Nemesis is still a prisoner of the Soviet Union, and you are a guest of my government. And he's like, I don't need lectures. And the Martian Manhunter's like, I think you do. And Batman goes, how did you ever become leader of this team, Johns? And he goes, you recommended me for the job. And it was a good recommendation. Damn it. And so, all right. And so we see a couple of bloodied Soviet soldiers. And it looks like it was the Suicide Squad, and flag goes, we're almost there. And Batman's like, open the cell. He goes, but I told you. And Batman's like, I don't care what you told me, Red. Look at this man's condition. And John Jones goes, Batman. He goes, remove those hands, John, now. And Rocket says, you cannot possibly believe that he has beaten he was beaten by the authorities. Um, and Batman is like, sorry here. His injuries are obviously the result of combat leading to his arrest, and Batman's like, you cannot be that stupid. And he's like, I'm not. And he's like, Nemesis is not a spy. And Martian Manhunter's had enough. He says, that will be enough. Batman, we've worked together for many years. We respect each other. We're friends. But I tell you, and I'm serious this time. And is he serious? It says, oh my God, sorry, Mr. Miracle. And Blue Beetle's like, I really think he's serious. If you don't cease this arrogant juvenile behavior, I'll see to it that you're booted out of Russia and out of the Justice League. Remember who you are, what you stand for, and what this team stands for. And remember who the leader is of this team. The leader you selected, the leader you agreed to follow. And Blue Beetle is like, here it comes. And Captain Atom is like, here comes what? That's the question. And Batman is like, just staring. He's like, so what's the plan, Chief? And let's just get on with our business here. Check out the prison grounds. And Blue Beetle says, I don't think you're gonna have to check too hard, John. And he says, looks like the mountain just came to the JLI. And then here comes the Suicide Squad. And so we get here and back to the hospital, and he says, well, Amanda, my love, Max, don't call me that, she says. It seems we're at an impasse. A pity. It's a pretty tough situation your people have got themselves in. Okay, Max, let's talk it through one more time. And Max says, good thinking, Amanda, and don't worry, my love. And she's like, don't call me that. However bad it is for your Suicide Squad, it can't get any worse. And so here comes the rockets, and then the guy that stole that car, and here come these Russian superheroes. So, all right, here comes number 13, and like I said, Luke McConnell and is it John Ostrander? I forgot, but that's okay. And so we're basically going to have a superhero fight. So Battle Lines is the title here. And so Luke McConnell was the writer during most of Denny O'Neil's run on Iron Man. And so when Jim Rhodes was Iron Man, Luke McConnell was his penciler. And then Mark Bright took over. So, all right. So here we go with kind of each team fighting. And really, this is what most of it happens because they just wanted, they both wanted to get this guy out. And so Batman's not very impressed with the Suicide Squad. And he's like, hey, Nemesis is one of us. And then Batman goes, if he's working for you, he's not the Nemesis I knew and deserves his fate. This is something I don't think the original writers would have gone with, but that's all right. All right, so Flag's trying to stop him, and Batman punches him, and next thing you know, these two are going to get into a fight also. And so this is all this is. And so this issue is unfortunately mostly just filler. Nothing really happens to advance where this story is going to go with next. So we're basically just going to look. Man, this is so, with the two of them basically having the same thing. And so Waller and Max are still arguing and this and that. But that's okay. So they're just basically still arguing. And so she grabs her foot, which of course hurts. And then she's like trying to get her way. And so basically, like the previous issue, he wants everyone to know that the League did this, and she wants secrecy. So Here we go. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm sort of just skipping over a lot of stuff here. John Jones and Vixen were in the League together. And this was the Justice League before the relaunch, which is this series. DC at this time was keeping things close to the vest. Batman was really about the only one. So a lot of these heroes were B, C's, and D's. But I think Keith Giffen made it work. But eventually once... real quick here, he was going to kill this guy or kill Mr. Miracle, and this guy's like stops him. His own guy stops him, and he's like, "Did he really try to kill me, or did the blow make him accidentally pull the trigger?" And Deadshot's like, "Hell if I know." And so here the fight's stopped. Anyway, so when oh my goodness. Kevin Maguire left. The sales really kind of took a big dive. So, all right. So these two are continue to fight here, and just you can see here, kind of 2 pages still of these two kind of going at it here. But you can see they finally break up the fight here. Batman hits him here. And you can see Flag's really beaten up, and Batman's missing one of his ears. And so here, after all that, she just does a thing and gets Nemesis out. And so she gets a hole, and everybody goes through, but they keep Nemesis, and they're gonna take him to their embassy. And so here those two, Waller and Max, are still arguing, and they got things back, and she's like, I'm gonna deal with the Suicide Squad. This will be dealt with in their own title. And Batman at the end, he's had it, and this league is a joke. I'm tired of babysitting morons. I quit. And John's like, well, if that's what you want. And of course, Guy Gardner's like, sniff, sniff, gee. And so thus endeth this 2-parter, but we will continue. Batman's not done yet, so Batman will be back. Anyway, so JLI 13 13 and 14. Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, Al Gordon, John Ostrander, and Luke McDonnell. Goodness gracious, I remembered all that. Like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.